All right. And I'm going to switch us back to, of course. All right. And give a couple of seconds for this to come back in. All right. So again, welcome everyone, and thank you all for joining for today's webinar, Effective Leadership Series Part 2, Self-Compassion for Leaders. My name is William Moore, and I am with OJJDP's National Training and Technical Assistance Center. And before we start today's webinar, I'd like to take a few minutes to complete or provide a few details regarding our technology for you all to keep in mind. Please note that this webinar is indeed being recorded and will be published on the NTTAC YouTube page. Please note that on our NTTAC YouTube page, you will be able to view archived webinars. If you'd like to receive any supporting materials or handouts related to webinars, please reach out to the OJJDP TTA Help Desk. For those wishing to download a copy of the PowerPoint slides or any other important handouts, you may do so by locating the handout pod in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Just simply click on the name of the file and then click the download button, and you will be able to access those important documents there. Please note that during today's webinar, we will allow for you all a chance to ask our presenters questions. Please submit your questions in the chat box as they arise, and we will address them during our Q&A session. Simply type your question and then click enter or hit the bubble next to the chat there to submit your question. Now, please note that individuals who are signed in today's webinar will receive a certificate of attendance, those who are signed in. However, individuals who are in a group, please note that you will have to complete the group validation form in order for you to receive a certificate. Speaking of groups in attendance, what I'd like to do is take just a moment to get a good count of how many individuals that we have that are participating in groups. So if you're in a group, if you could at this time, please type in the total number of additional people in the room with you today. If you're by yourself, there's no need to type anything at this time. But if you're in a group, please type the total number of additional people in the room with you today. So for example, if it's me and my sister watching today's webinar, I will put +1, which is the additional person. So please type the total number of additional people in the room with you today. And again, please note that you will have to go and submit a group validation form if you like a certificate for that additional person who is joined. This is the agenda for today's webinar. Please take a moment to review this agenda. And that being said, I will now turn today's webinar over to our moderator, Beth Medina. Beth, take it away.
Thanks so much, William. Hello, everyone. I am sorry I'm not going to be able to share on camera. We're having some technical difficulties with my camera. Apparently, it's too good for the system. So anyway, it is great to be back with you again today to present the second in on our Effective Leadership series. We are going to have 2 more after this, so look for those on NTTAC's listings of webinars. I am the CEO of the Innocent Justice Foundation and the Program Director for SHIFT. Innocent Justice has been privileged to provide for more than a decade mental health and wellness training for Internet Crimes Against Children task force teams and their affiliates. We work always with a mental health professional and a law enforcement professional training together to provide that multidisciplinary approach. And we just try to be as much support to the law enforcement folks doing the work of rescuing children as we possibly can. So we take suggestions from our collaborators in what they would like to see as far as topics. And this whole series was designed around the suggestions of some of the commanders that they would like to see information regarding this topic on how to be strong leaders. So we developed this with our team, and we're bringing it to you. We have a lot of resources on our website, so if you want to go there, you can see all manner of resources that we have available, and you can also look at our other series. We recently finished a series on trauma and traumatic stress and its effects on individuals and teams. So I encourage you to take a look at our website. If we can be of any assistance to you and your teams, please reach out to us. We will have our contact information will be given to you today, so you can reach out to any one of us, and we will be happy to help as best as we can. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to our fantastic trainers, two of my favorite people, and I hope that you get a lot of great information and tools today. Thanks so much.
Hi, so I'm Carol Bruska. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am the mental health provider for the New Mexico Attorney General's ICAC task force. Anthony, I work under Anthony as the mental health provider for his task force. I've been doing it for, I think, 5 or 6 years. I don't really recall exactly when. It just seems like I started yesterday because I enjoy it so much. Time just flies by. I love to present on wellness, on how to make people feel better, on what they can do to increase their resilience. So I'm happy to be here today. Glad that we can share some information with you. Please, if you have any questions about how you can increase your own wellness or resilience, how you can find out about creating a team. We're going to be doing a mental health wellness program. We're going to be doing a training later on this year about how to create your own mental health wellness team or program. So you should stick with us and through these trainings, and then join us for the others as well. So Anthony, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. Thanks for being here. We still trying to get used to the virtual environment. We'd rather be with you in person for so many different reasons besides the great food around the country. So again, I'm Anthony Mays. I'm the Special Agent in Charge and the Commander of the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force and the Human Trafficking Task Force for the Office of the New Mexico Attorney General. I've been in law enforcement for over 32 years. Actually started developing the ICAC task force about 11 years ago when I retired the first time from the Albuquerque Police Department. And then I started developing the Human Trafficking Task Force. So during my time of developing the ICAC task force, I started to see a lot of the same things that I would see when I was working in violent crimes with the Albuquerque Police Department. A lot of burnout among detectives, supervisors, support staff, just dealing with the everyday issues of the victims, the population that we all serve. So I saw that burnout, and there wasn't really a solution other than we'd have a debriefing once in a while. And I got a chance to meet some folks that were starting the SHIFT program, which is the program we'll be presenting to you today, and some of the ideas that they had. And they were approaching commanders and trying to come up with a good program that would work for law enforcement and service providers and first responders and anyone that may come in contact with a victim. And I got on board. And I thought, this is a great idea because all that burnout that I was seeing the first part of my career in law enforcement, I didn't want to see that again. So the tools that we'll be talking about today are some of the tools that I've implemented for our task force, and I was able to bring Carol on, who's an amazing person. And I've got a story behind that too, which we'll probably share with you in some of the other webinars and how Carol came on board. And we've had a very successful team. We went from a couple of people to now going on 14 people, and and the turnaround and the recidivism of folks just calling it quits is not there anymore, so it's pretty exciting. So we're glad you're here, and we're glad you're going to get a chance to learn all about what we have to offer. So again, this is the part 2 of the series. It's a 4-part series on self-compassion for leaders. And again, as a leader, for, gosh, I don't know now, it's been, over 15 years. I don't think I did that great of a job as a leader initially. I recognized there was issues taking place with my folks, but my first part of my career, but I think I finally found a solution again with this program, and I was able to implement it with my team and definitely see a difference. The neat thing about this program, it's actually funded through the Department of Justice under OJJDP, Office of Juvenile Justice Delinquency Programs, which are the same folks that actually fund our ICAC grants, and which is one of the reasons I was able to bring Carol on board with our team, because of the support we get from OJJDP and the Department of Justice. So again, very exciting that we get a chance to do this with you.
So this series is actually, Beth, did you want to join in on talk about this, or would you like me to talk about it? Okay, I'll jump in.
Share, Carol.
Okay, perfect. So, so this is a leadership series that we've been. This is part 2 of 4. We are. It's designed to support commanders. So this one will address the strategies, the wellness strategies of those in leadership roles to help the law enforcement, prosecutors, and other investigative personnel to manage stress from their difficult work in combating sexual exploitation. So the series will walk those in management positions through the necessary wellness steps needed to create an effective team. There will be a focus on mitigating the challenges faced by Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force members. So a strong leader really recognizes that being in tune with themselves and with the mental wellness of their team members is crucial for the individual accountability and optimal team function. Self-compassion is an important part of the wellness and an effective tool for enhancing performance. Self-compassion entails being intentional about caring for one's well-being and focusing on growth where there are challenges. So once a well-established wellness plan is in place, the next step is working with the team so they can be aware of their own needs with respect to mental wellness. An effective supervisor understands the importance of connection as a way to lead others and sees the benefit of building a trusting relationship where others willingly follow. So we're so excited to be here today to present this material to you, and let's get started. I think that, yep, so the objectives for today, we're going to explore how to become an effective leader, and that means more than just, effectiveness means more to us than just being able to get people to do what you want. Being effective as a leader means getting people on board because they want to be on board, getting people to rally around you when things are difficult. It means getting the job done in a way that everybody feels good about it when it's done. And then we're going to talk about the importance of wellness for success while in the leadership role. So making sure that you're mentoring wellness by doing things, taking steps for your own wellness, and doing that for your team as well. We're going to talk about the importance of self-compassion, which we're going to discuss it a little bit because oftentimes people talk about self-care, but they don't talk about self-compassion. So we're going to really hone in on that so you'll have an understanding. And then lastly, our objective is going to be to understand the steps needed while in a leadership role to create an effective team. Because you might be an effective leader, but in order to be successful, you have to have an effective team as well.
Thank you, Carol. So as I mentioned earlier, the shift classes are really designed to support ICAC teams and affiliates. But again, there may be some of you that are on this call that might not necessarily be working ICAC cases full-time, so this will assist you as well. But really, being exposed to cosmetic materials during the course of our investigation, working with those victims directly. As I mentioned, I oversee human trafficking as well, and this program has worked great for my human trafficking folks. Just the long-term effects negative impact that we feel as professionals, it's important that we recognize and get the wellness support that we need to continue the job and run that marathon.
So what is compassion? Compassion is respect and caring. So that means, you know, do you treat yourself like you do your best friend? It's respect and caring about others, and then self-compassion is treating yourself as nicely as you would your friend. So are you empathic? Do you have the ability to put yourself in someone's shoes? Empathy is very different from sympathy, where sympathy we sometimes think of in terms of feeling sorry for someone or feeling like you'd like to help them out. Empathy is actually putting yourself in someone else's shoes to try to see something from their perspective. And oftentimes when we're as a leader, it's important that we do that. We put ourselves in our employees' shoes, because from a leadership standpoint, things might look very different. It could be that the power imbalance, as I'm the leader and these are my employees, make the perspective a little bit different. But if you can have the ability to take a look at things through your employees' eyes, that can help you, and that compassion is going to help you be a good leader. It's selfless and unconditional. So compassion means that there's no conditions on our feelings of care for others. So we're not going to say, as long as you agree with me, I will care for you. As long as you agree with me, then I'll support you. Compassion means to be selfless and unconditional, meaning that you might not see things the same way, but you can look through that person's perspective. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with them or you have to do things the way they see them, but it's just allowing yourself to have the ability to look through their lens, because that can help you figure out how to get that person to buy into what you want to happen as a leader. You want to have committed action. So that means it's about not just doing things without thinking strategically. It's about making sure that you're committed and that you're going to follow through, and that when you say something, you're going to follow through with action. You don't just say things and then not follow through. And compassion is about benefiting others. So we're not a compassionate person because it's going to benefit us. We're a compassionate person because we understand that that's important in a way for us to relate to others, and for others to feel like they're heard, for others to want to join us on a team, for others to want to really to be part of what we're doing. So part of the process, part of the team, part of whatever the actions are. So compassion really is, it's about being respectful, it's about looking through that person's lens, it's about not holding conditions on our feelings for those people, being committed, and then it's the purpose of benefiting others.
You know, Carol, it's interesting, you know, we talk about compassion, and one of the things that I think back when I started with when I started at ICAC and developing the team, there was only two of us, and I was actually doing all the roles. I was the analyst, I was reviewing the tips, I was working the cases, I was doing the warrants, and then I was out in the field trying to meet people and develop affiliates. And that really helped me later as I started developing the team, because now that I have an analyst, a full-time analyst, I can pick that up and I know what she's going through when she has a tough day. You know, I know for sure when she's having a tough day at work, because I've been there, and I can feel that, and I can show that empathy, and then I can pick up those. Sometimes it's just the body signals that you get, just the way they look that day. But again, that's all part of compassion, is being in there in the trenches sometimes and working with them.
And I would imagine, Anthony, that your level of compassion that your employees sense from you really makes them feel more committed to the job, because they're able to see Anthony's been there, Anthony's done that, he understands what we've experienced. And so when you ask them to do something and they know you would do it yourself, it makes them more committed to the job. So self-compassion is, go ahead, Anthony.
No, and you're right. I mean, and that's something that I always recommend. I mean, even when, even with the new leadership coming in, it's something that especially when you're trying to sell a wellness program, and again, we'll talk more about this in some of our other series, but it's understanding what the job is all about, and Carol's right. I mean, just having hands-on and being part of the job, and especially with sometimes upper management, they understanding exactly what we all deal with.
So self-compassion is a little bit different than compassion in that are we treating ourselves that way? So are we treating ourselves in the way that we would like to have others treat us? And it's a little bit more difficult sometimes for us to be self-compassionate as opposed to be compassionate, because it means that we are allowing ourselves the space to make mistakes and then not beat ourselves up over it. We're allowing ourselves to not always be perfect. We're allowing ourselves to, maybe need a little bit extra time, or maybe need some more education or something. It's just a way to treat ourselves as we would our best friend. And if you see the little picture there, it's talking about, it says hate, indifference, compassion, empathy. So in ourself, it's, how are we feeling about ourselves? And then how we feel about ourselves is then reflected on how we treat others. And if we're going to have self-compassion, it requires ongoing awareness of our own pain and suffering. So if we don't acknowledge that we have pain and suffering, that we feel bad if things don't go right, or we feel like we take responsibility for things that maybe aren't really our responsibility, how can we turn that around and say, if I was having this conversation with my best friend, I would say such and such, but I'm not saying that to myself, and why is that? So if my best friend tells me they made a mistake, would I say to them, you're a really bad person, why did you make a mistake? Or would I say something along the lines of, we all make mistakes, what can you learn from this? How can you do things better? So it requires empathy as opposed to judgment towards oneself in the face of pain and suffering, and it requires a sense of belonging. So when I think of self-compassion compared to self-care, self-compassion is how we feel about ourselves, whereas self-care is the things that we do. So how do I feel about myself in general? How do I feel about myself when I don't do things exactly how I'd like? How do I feel about myself when I do things really well? If I have a success, do I try to make it seem like it's not as good as it is, so that, because I don't want to feel like I'm trying to brag, or do I really give myself credit, the same credit I would give to my friend? And so this is what I was talking about. So self-compassion is regarding yourself compassionately. So it's having that ability to look at yourself as a human and not say, I should meet a higher standard. We are all just humans, and some of us, we have better days than others, and sometimes we make a mistake, and sometimes we do things really well. But it's being able to say, I'm only human, and I would treat people on my team a particular way because I understand they're only human, so I need to make sure that I'm doing the same thing for myself. The reason that self-compassion is such an important part of being a leader is because if you can look at yourself and see where you hold yourself to a higher standard, then you can make sure that your own team understands that they need to hold themselves to a standard, but not a standard they can never meet. So self-care is about treating yourself compassionately. They sound, like it says here, they sound interchangeable, but they're very different. So one is thinking versus doing. So the self-compassion really is the thinking, and the self-care is actually the doing. So self-care for me might be going to get a massage, meditating, taking a nap, making sure I'm eating well. And then the self-compassion piece is, how do I think about myself? So I think that I deserve to have a good quality life, so I'm going to make sure I'm exercising. I'm going to make sure that I am eating well. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing those things that I can because I really appreciate myself. And then self-care is the action.
So really with self-compassion, you're saying that, and that actually strengthens our personal accountability. And that really, when we're starting to be accountable to ourselves and we take care of ourselves, we're better at taking care of our people. I have found that in my life as a leader, that when I start neglecting myself and not having a lot of compassion for myself, I'm working those 12, 14-hour days, and I start thinking, well, why are my people not doing that? And then I'd like to remind myself, I'm overdoing it. I've got to think about and have some self-compassion, and then practice that self-care is important. So some really good points, Carol, that it's really easy for that to get away from us.
So self-compassion and ICAC leadership. Anthony, you want to talk about this one?
Well, self-compassion is important because as an ICAC leader, I can't give what they don't embody. And we have to look at being in tune with your people is important, and being a lead. And as I gave you an example earlier, just something as simple as I've done every job. I mean, I have been around. I mean, it's being in law enforcement as long as I've had to write the warrants. I've had to write the warrants. I've had to execute them. I had to do the evidence. I've had to do things that I've asked my people to do. And being an attuned leader is important to understand that, and that when sometimes your people need some direction. And as a leader, we have to do that. You can't give what you don't have. So again, being that self-compassion is very, very important, and remembering how you handle things and how you've taken care of yourself to get the job done, and then passing that on to your folks as a leader.
So there are some myths about self-compassion that we want to talk about so that we can break those right away. Oftentimes people think that they feel guilty about having self-compassion, like it's self-indulgent or something. So we want to make sure that you understand that these are the myths and how we can combat those. So the first myth is self-compassion means feeling sorry for yourself. In fact, self-compassionate people are less likely to have thoughts of self-pity. So they have better mental health. It's not about feeling sorry for yourself. It's just acknowledging that you are human like everyone else, and that because of that, there are times when you need to think of yourself highly in a way that will help you to understand why a mistake was made, or to understand when you're not feeling that you're doing 100%. The second myth that we want to talk about is the self-compassion means weakness. Now again, that's not true either. So actually, self-compassion is one of the most powerful sources of coping and resilience. When we go through major life challenges, self-compassion helps us survive and thrive. So if we have the ability to have self-compassion, it actually comes from a place of strength. If you were weak, you wouldn't be able to have that sense of self-compassion. So being able to say, you know, I can do this. I can understand that I'm going to cut myself some slack because I can only do the best I can, and I did the best I can. I went to work today. I did 100%, but that 100% effort only yielded 75% of productivity or 75% success. But, you know, I gave my best. So it doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that you are actually able to see things from a perspective that's going to be useful to help you carry on your work. The next myth would be self-compassion makes you complacent. Again, that's not accurate either. So self-compassion helps people to be more motivated to apologize for harms done to others and more committed to not repeating that behavior. So it actually strengthens personal accountability. It doesn't mean that if we are having self-compassion, we're understanding that we're only human, that we're then going to just say, oh, well, whatever I do, it's not a big deal because I'm having self-compassion. That's not self-compassion at all. If we have some self-compassion, then we can say when something happens, when we do something, we can say to ourselves, yeah, you know, I really messed up. And I want to make sure that that person that I messed up with knows that I messed up because I messed up not because I'm bad or not because I'm a failure or not because I'm incompetent, but just because whatever the situation was at that point, I messed up. And being able to reach out to your staff members or reach out to your loved ones or whoever it is that you messed up with, and being able to say, you know what, I messed up. I'm going to try to do things differently. I'm taking responsibility and accountability for this. and I'm going to make it better. How can I make it better for you? Self-compassion is narcissistic. Again, that is not true. Self-compassion is a way of understanding who we are with kindness and acceptance, especially when we fail or feel inadequate. So self-compassion requires acknowledging that we share the human condition of imperfection. So we're not being narcissistic. We're not thinking it's all about us. We're not thinking that nobody else cares or matters. What we're thinking is, again, we sometimes make a mistake. We are only human, and we can do our 100% best, and that's all we can do. And even with 100%, sometimes there's things that are going to happen that that we don't want to happen. And then the last one here is self-compassion is selfish. Well, being good to yourself is never selfish. Being good to yourself is like filling up your own bank account with care for yourself so then you can give to others. So if being selfish would be to not want to take care of ourselves and just expect others to take care of us. Self-compassion is actually good because it helps you to be good to others, while being bad to yourself only gets in the way. So self-compassionate individuals were described by their partners as being more caring. People tend to be more satisfied and securely attached in their relationships with a self-compassionate partner. And the reason is because the more self-compassion we have, the easier it is for us to be empathic with others around us. So if we're feeling that we can make a mistake and it's not the end of the world, then it's easier for us to say, and my partner can make a mistake and it's not the end of the world. So all of these things are actually myths, and in actuality, self-compassion is a wonderful way for us to build resilience, to increase our relationships with others, and just increase our overall happiness. So when we see beyond self-judgment, we can get in touch with ourselves and that care and want everyone, including ourselves, to be as healthy and happy as possible. Is there anything else you want to add there, Anthony? Okay. So the benefits that we can see from self-compassion, obviously, Anthony, you want to hit the employee retention part there? Okay, so maybe Anthony's having problems with his sound right now. So what we have seen is,
Hello?
Go ahead. Are you there, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, something's wrong with this. My phone cut out for some reason, so I apologize, everyone. And I was talking earlier, and I'm like, oh wow, I guess no one's hearing me. So let me start over again. So employee retention is important. Employees who feel leadership is compassionate are more likely to stay with the team. And as I mentioned at the beginning, and I saw that firsthand with my team. Definitely, I always think back when I started developing the team, and I developed my very first forensic examiner, and he'd been on 18 months, went through 18 months of training, and he came up to me and said, you know what, I'm going to have to, and he was actually an affiliate, but he was my forensic examiner as an affiliate. One of my only forensic examiners is an affiliate. And he said, when I say forensic examiners, they did forensics on internet crimes against children cases, and he went through extensive training. But he'd worked the cases for some time, and then it took him 18 months of going through this intense training. And he said, I need to leave. He goes, I can't do this anymore. And I knew then as a leader that I needed to make sure that my employees understand that I am going to be there to support them and show them that compassion, because I've been there before. And I've been there where I didn't feel that my leadership was supporting me during my first part of my career in law enforcement. So that's important for that retention part as a leader, is showing that compassion that Carol's talked about, to stay there with your team. The stress reduction, employees feel more able to express their concerns and needs. I've experienced that firsthand now with my team in developing. I always talk about the story, and if you've heard it before, you'll have to hear it again. But I'll never forget the time we did an all-day operation, and we were able to rescue some children. And it was a difficult day for my team. And we went home for the day because it was definitely a long day. It was a 12, 14-hour day. But the next morning I came in, and my team was all standing in a circle talking, and they seemed upset. And immediately they came up, one of the leads came up and said, "Can I talk to you for a second, boss?" And I closed the door, and he broke down and said, "Look, the team's really taking what happened yesterday pretty hard, and we need to talk to Carol." And it's, again, having Carol on board has been amazing for me because I was there to listen to them and support them. But they knew at that point they could come and talk to me, and they felt comfortable enough to express their concerns. They weren't expecting to hear because, again, being a cop for as long as I have, they weren't going to hear from me, just tough it out and get back out on the street and go save some more kids. Instead, I said, let's see what we can do to take care of everybody on the team. And I was able to immediately call Carol and have her respond and help me with them. And physical health is definitely important. Employees feel more connected to each other and an increase of happiness at work. And again, with that example that I gave you, I don't have the burnout. I don't have the folks calling in sick because they're burned out about work. Because they know they get that support when they get to work. And if anything, they know that when they get to work, if they need that additional support, they're going to get that from their team and their leadership. So it's important to recognize that.
And, you know, Anthony, some things come to mind when we're talking about a compassionate ICAC leadership. So it's like, you know, if you are self-compassionate, then it's going to increase your capacity to be self-aware. So when you have that compassion towards yourself, you're going to be self-aware. And a self-aware leader can be more understanding of others. And a self-aware, self-compassionate leader is going to increase their ability to connect with others. And this helps to increase communication. You know, we're going to have some, if you've got some self-compassion, then you're going to help people gravitate to play the roles that are more appropriate for them. You're going to find people that might have a strength in one area and a weakness in other, but having that self-compassion is like, they're going to say, you know what, I realize that I'm not good in this type of work. So maybe it's somebody from Anthony's team who's been working ICAC cases, and then they come to Anthony and they say, Anthony, I realize that ICAC cases are a little bit too intense for me, but maybe I can work on some human trafficking cases. So having that self-compassion really is going to help people find a place in the environment that's going to work for them, that's going to make them feel like they're in a good space. It's going to allow them the ability to go to Anthony and say, Anthony, can I talk with you about this? It's going to be the ability to expand your resiliency and your ability to not feel so awful when there is a failure. So it's going to help you and your team survive inevitable difficulties. So like Anthony was talking, because he is a self-compassionate leader, his team felt very comfortable coming to him and saying, this was really tough for me. And although they didn't have a failure, they just had a really, really difficult day. And when they had that difficult day, his team was able to pull together. I was able to go in, and honestly, I didn't have any miracle cures. I just really held a space for them and listened to them. But they already had the foundation of knowing that it's okay to say it's hard, that it's okay to be upset, that it's okay to be distressed and not know what to do. And because of that, they were able to come to Anthony first and then come to me and then be able to work through everything they experienced and then move forward. So because of Anthony's ability to be self-compassionate and to mentor that to his staff were able to then be self-compassionate themselves and then move forward. It helps, you know, it's gonna help them whenever there's a rough time in their in the workload, and it's going to increase their ability to learn and grow. So as a compassionate, self-compassionate leader, he's going to be able to hold a space for people to learn and grow and try things out. So again, if somebody is feeling like they need a change, he's going to be willing to allow that to happen. And he's going to encourage that because as a self-compassionate leader, you want what's best for yourself, for your team, and for the individuals. And then holding that space for people saying, I want what's best for you unconditionally, and if that means you need to switch to a different team, if that means you need to switch to a different job, whatever the case may be, I'm going to hold that space for you, and I'm not going to be resentful, or I'm not going to be angry, or I'm not going to be judgmental. In actuality, that encourages people to stay with the team because they feel like it's a safe place where they're accepted for who they are. So you can expand your sense of well-being and optimism and happiness, and that's going to be because you as a role model are going to teach that to your team, and then your team's going to pick that up, and then the whole team is going to feel more connected and more grounded. Self-compassion honestly makes employees feel safe, and that sounds kind of ironic that would help your staff feel more safe. But when you as a leader show that you make mistakes and everybody survives, then it allows other people to think, wow, if I make a mistake, I just need to own it and fix it, but I won't be kicked, I won't be kicked off the island. I won't be banished. I won't be judged because we're all humans here. So it creates more opportunities. Staff will feel more comfortable trying something new because if things don't go exactly perfect, there's a space for that. And it's like, well, what do we do next time to make things better? Or how do we change that so we figure out what a good fit for you is? So some practices, there's certainly some things as a leader that you can do to start practicing self-compassion. You can do what we call a self-compassion break. The 3 components of self-compassion are a powerful recipe for regulating difficult emotions. The first component is mindfulness. Now, what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is staying focused in the moment on whatever it is you're doing. So whether that self-compassion break means we're just going to sit and mindfully focus on our breath, we're going to mindfully focus on something positive in our life, we're going to mindfully focus on the view outside that makes us happy. It's just staying very much in the moment. That's going to help us disentangle from whatever problems we're having. If we're having a difficult moment and our brain is kind of going a million different directions and 100 miles an hour, it's harder for us to refocus. So if you notice that suddenly your brain is going 100 miles an hour and it's going to 50 different areas all at once, just take a break. Stop, take some deep breaths in, focus on the moment. So what can I do in the moment to bring me back? Do I need to really look at something around me and I can focus on that in the moment that I know I'm here? Do I need to do something else like touch the table so I can say, okay, my brain is going a million miles an hour and my thoughts are going all over the place. I'm going to focus on what's right in front of me. So I'm going to touch my desk and I'm going to feel the temperature of the desk and I'm going to feel the hardness of the desk and I'm going to notice whether it's rough or whether it's smooth or whatever else around it. So I'm bringing all of my attention back to one thing, which is going to help me refocus. And that's the first component. The second component is common humanity. So it's an antidote to the loneliness that may come with social distancing. When we recall that we're not alone no matter what we're going through, things become more bearable. So that means just really remembering who we have to support us. Now, I know right now part of the issue with that's going on for Anthony's team is that they're still working from home. And that's difficult because they can't be there to share water cooler stories. They can't be there just to check in about what they thought about the football game over the weekend or whatever else that might be because they don't have that physical connection that they normally do. But it doesn't mean that they don't have each other if they need each other. So maybe instead of, grabbing a cup of coffee together, they call each other on the phone and share a cup of coffee over the phone. When they meet as a team, maybe that means that they don't just talk about work, that they actually talk about their personal lives. I know when COVID first started, I was meeting with them weekly over Zoom, just mostly so that we could reconnect, mostly so they could have that connection of being together because they're in a small office typically, where they're seeing each other several times a day, where they're interacting with each other face to face. And so having that distance was a big change. So part of the second part is making sure that remembering that we are all human and that we don't have to be lonely because we have a huge support system in our own office. And then the third thing is that self-kindness is the third part of a self-compassion break. So it's an antidote for fear. Kindness regulates fear through connection and warmth, similar to what we might experience with a dear friend. So if we can be self-compassionate, then that means we're going to treat ourselves kindly. And when we treat ourselves kindly, we don't have to have so much fear in our lives. Soothing touch, what does that mean? So soothing touch, we're less likely to receive physical expressions of kindness when we're in self-quarantine, obviously. So, but we can still comfort ourselves. So don't be shy about offering yourself a hug. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but really what happens is that touch of a hug, it stimulates the oxytocin in our brain, and it makes us just feel better overall. So maybe that means giving ourselves a hug. Maybe that means just kind of if we've got somebody in our family that we're quarantining with or that we're staying at home with, ask them for a hug. Ask them for extra hugs. Do something like make sure you're petting your dog. Make sure that you're doing, because we need physical touch. And if we can't get it in the way we normally do, we need to figure out how we can do that. So so what's going to happen? Kindness regulates fear through connection and warmth. So if we are able to do some soothing touch, meaning even if we have to like rub our arm or give our dog a squeeze or our cat a pet, or just, with our partner saying, hey, I need extra hugs during this time because my oxytocin is so low because all of this stress and pressure that's going on is really causing me to feel disconnected. Ask for a hug. There's nothing wrong with that. I know for me that's been probably the hardest part about COVID because I'm quite a hugger. I hug people all the time, and not being able to do that has been very, very difficult for me. It's probably been good for my dogs because they're getting more love and attention than they normally would. But for me and the people around me that I normally hug, it's been very difficult. The second piece of practice to try is giving and receiving compassion. So what does that mean, giving and receiving compassion? That means, oops, I'm sorry, yeah, one more thing about soothing touch I wanted to add. So another thing that we can do with soothing touch is to put our hand over our heart. And the reason that we want to do this is because the most primal experience that we had was listening to our mother's heartbeat when we were in utero. And that becomes a very soothing thing for us. So since we can't, most of us cannot hear our mother's heartbeat on a regular basis now, the best thing that we can do is to put our hand over our own heart. And when we feel our own heartbeat, that stimulates that same sense of comfort and calming that we had when we were in utero. So it sounds like it couldn't be true. It sounds kind of silly. But when you're feeling stressed, if you take your hand and put it over your heart, feeling your heartbeat, that's going to help slow your heart rate down. It's going to make you feel more comfortable, and it's going to just give you that opportunity to really have some self-compassion. So giving and receiving compassion, that's, although we need to physically distance ourselves, and I really think of when it's physical distance, I kind of think of it as socially distancing because we don't necessarily want to not be interacting with others. We just want to make sure we're keeping the correct social distance. So we don't need to emotionally distance ourselves. We want to make sure that we are connecting with others in whatever that means. So if we have a partner or children or family or friends, reaching out to them and showing them some compassion and saying, I know this is difficult for me. I would imagine it's difficult for you. Doing the same thing with our coworkers or our employees if we're in the leading role. So how do we say, what do we do? Maybe have a team meeting and say, I just wanted to let you know that this is a time that's difficult for all of us, and how can we really respect and appreciate each other to give ourselves that extra boost that we're going to need now. This time is so unique because it's not a time where every single person in the whole world is being impacted. So it's not just something that's happening in our own workplace, in our own city, our own state, our own country. This is worldwide, and it's something that's very unique to us given during this time. So we need to make sure we're having extra compassion for all of ourselves. And, you know, connecting with others feels good. So that's a way to, by giving and receiving compassion, that's going to make us feel good, and it's going to help others reach out back to us, which is going to make us feel good as well. And again, this can be practiced with our workmates. It can be practiced with our family members, our friends. And then the next piece is being with difficult emotions. So what does that mean? That means that because we know that isolation is not natural for human beings, just being alone with ourselves for an extended period of time usually brings up challenging emotions. So it's the more time we're by ourselves, the more time we have to be in our heads, and that's not always very comfortable. So just recognizing that if we're by ourselves, some difficult things might come up, and that's okay. And so if it's something that we need to write down to discuss with somebody else, or if we just really need to think about, wow, why am I feeling this way, and what can I do to make myself feel better? So we can label what we're feeling and then decide what we want to do with it. So maybe we're thinking, you know, this COVID situation has made me feel really, really sad. It's made me feel sad for those individuals that have been sick. It's made me feel sad for the disconnect I've had with my own family and friends. It's made me feel sad for all of the people that are having to work through this, whatever the case might be. And then what can I do to make myself feel better, or make myself feel like I can reach out to others and support them? And just being able to support someone else is going to make us feel better, because it takes the emphasis off of us and puts it on someone else. So the last practice that we're going to talk about right now is called soles of the feet. So this practice anchors our awareness into the present moment when we feel emotionally overwhelmed. So when I was talking about self-compassion break at the top, and I said you could put your hands on your desk and just really hone in on what's going on, soles of the feet is the same type of activity. So what we can do is we can just really direct all of our attention to the soles of our feet. What does the floor feel like beneath us? What do our socks feel like on our feet? What are the things that I'm noticing? Is this a floor that is this a floor that's cushy? Is this a floor that's hard? Any of those things that we can notice, again, is putting all of our attention into one thing, and so our brain can't be going 100 miles an hour. We can redirect our attention away from our thoughts to the point of the contact between our body and the earth. So it really helps to ground us when we're feeling overwhelmed, when we're feeling triggered, when things are really rough. So some more practices for self-compassion. Self-compassion in daily life. So that means, you know, we don't need to practice meditation to experience self-compassion. It's an activity that we could do if we wanted, but it's certainly not something that we have to do. Asking ourselves, how do I care for myself already, is a self-compassionate act. So what are the things, you know, do an inventory. What are the things already that I'm doing that are good for myself that I would like to continue? Because honestly, we know that everyone has some level of resilience and some level of compassion for themselves. So what can I do to increase that? What can I do to make sure that I'm doing the best I can for myself? So for example, when we're at home, we can still listen to music. We can still dance and read and Skype with friends or Zoom with friends or play games. So all of those things are compassionate things we can do for ourselves on a daily basis. A compassionate body scan. So when we find ourselves scanning for signs of coronavirus in our bodies, maybe we can find we can think about what are the good things that I'm feeling in my body scan. So we also need to remain friends with our bodies when we're doing a body scan. So every day I wake up and I think, okay, do I feel like I have a fever? Do I feel like I've got a sore throat? What are the things that I'm feeling in my body? But then I can also say, you know what? I'm feeling really strong today. You know, I was able to get out there and walk 5 miles yesterday, so my body feels strong. I feel like I'm well rested. I feel like I'm ready to go for today. So we want to just scan for, if we're going to scan for the negative, we want to make sure we're scanning for the positive. At some point, we won't be talking about COVID anymore, but it will still be important to check in with ourselves. And checking in with our body is a great thing to do when you first wake up in the morning. So for some of us, as we're getting older, it's like, okay, which, you know, I'm going to check it. I'm going to do body scan, and I'm going to notice which muscles and which joints are creaking. But again, it's something where we can check in and say, okay, how am I doing? Compassion, we also want to talk about core values. So that's the usual way that we find meaning in life are likely to be interrupted by social distancing. But what are the core values that we have? What are the core values that that lead us to who we are? What are the things that I hold true that no matter what the circumstances, whether it's COVID, whether it's everything is perfect in my life, whether I'm going through a rough time, what are the values that are important for me? So for instance, in my life, it's to be kind to others. It's to help others. It's to be true to myself. It's to, one of my core values is to make sure at the end of the day that I've done what I can to be a positive impact. But knowing your core values is a way to practice self-compassion. And then the last one on this that we're going to talk about right now is really savoring and gratitude. So savoring and gratitude, what does that mean? That means appreciating what we have, being grateful for what we have, and then really passing that on to other people. So thinking about the little things. When you're cooking your dinner, thinking about how delicious the food smells, or when you're waking up in the morning and your child is asking for breakfast, the sound of their voice, at some point you're going to think, oh, I remember the sound of that voice when I was, when they were growing up, and now they're all grown up, and oh, it would be so nice to have them back at the house as a little child. Or savoring and gratitude at work as well. So that could be really being thankful for the team that you have, being thankful for the people that are on your team, being able to go to work and say, wow, all of these people that I'm working with are really trying to help others have a better life. They're trying to save children, or maybe they're trying to protect people from being harmed. So having a gratitude attitude and savoring the moment, that's going to be so important for self-compassion. And then the last, so now, you know, it's journaling. So journaling is a great thing to do because we know that if we journal, then we can write down what's bothering us. We can also write down the things that we're doing that are going well. So having a practice of journaling is going to be something that's wonderful no matter what the situation is, because we have an opportunity to get our ideas out. Now, journaling doesn't have to be on pencil and paper. There are lots of apps out there where you can do your journaling, and then it can be password protected so nobody else can look at it. And so if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. Meditation is something that I'm a meditator. I've been a meditator for years and years, so I'm a big proponent of that. But, you know, it doesn't mean that you have to do it. Meditation, prayer, whatever that means, having some quiet time by yourself to just acknowledge your experience and to focus on the positives in your life, that's the important thing. And then noting, that's paying attention to the thoughts and feelings that arise and acknowledging responses. So am I being kind and understanding? Do I acknowledge my shortcomings? So, you know, noticing or noting that right now maybe I'm feeling a little bit stressed, and what's causing that stress? Maybe it's the environment that I'm in. Maybe it's I'm not sure if my family's healthy. Maybe it's there's a lot of pressure from the upper management to get something done, and I'm having a hard time doing that. Whatever the case may be, by just noting it, that's going to bring it out into the open, and then gives you the opportunity to start working on it. And then managing the self-criticizer. So I think we all have a self-criticizer on board, and it's a matter of how we can take that self-criticizer and then say, is this realistic? And would I be having this same level of criticism of my best friend?
You know, Carol, something that, and you're aware of this, is something that we did within our office. When we moved into our new building, the Attorney General actually had him build a a meditation room because I got that support from our leadership, and I explained to him what vicarious trauma is and how that affects the team and retention and why it's important we take care of our people. And he understood that. I mean, I got that support from all the leadership. So we moved into a new building. They actually built a room, and it's not a huge room. It's probably, I don't know, maybe 6 by 8, maybe a little bit bigger. And but the way it's decorated, you know, it has nice colored soothing walls, has a couch, a chair, and a place to go. And my folks have taken advantage of that. They use that for meditation. They've used that just to go up there for quiet time. They use it to get away from their workspace, because the way our office is set up, my folks are housed on the 3rd floor of this building, and they're in a suite, which is enclosed to prevent other folks who don't work ICAC to be exposed to what we all have to see. So they can actually leave that area, go up 2 floors, and go to this meditation room and take advantage of that for their own benefit in their own time. And it's worked great. I mean, and I noticed a big change. Again, it's getting away, the movement, and adding that to that. And so again, that's practicing self-compassion. I went out of the way to actually go up there myself to show them, you know, that I'm using it and everyone else uses it. If someone's gone from their desk, it's not like I have to see seats at the desk to show that someone's working, because I know they are. And as a leader, we trust our people and know that they need that time away. So maybe for that quiet time. And again, the meditation room has made that all possible. All right, so we're going to talk a little. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yep, I'm here. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. So we're going to talk a little about replace. So something that I've always practiced in law enforcement, and we've all been there as law enforcement, support personnel, victim advocates. We've worked with that individual where you're thinking, well, this is so far-fetched, and do I really want to spend the time here? And you know, is this person really being up and up? So I always think about this as replace. Some of the examples that I've given is imagine someone you really care deeply about, such as, you know, your own child. I mean, I have 4 children, and I always think back, you know, some of the things that just watching them grow up, and think about how you would treat them and how would you like them to be treated and how a best friend to be treated, and insert that into the way you practice your self-compassion for individuals. And I know Carol mentioned, how would you treat your best friend? How would you treat your significant other? That's how we should treat people. And that's all part of practicing self-compassion, replacing that person. And many times it's difficult, you know, but the way we come across and we listen, we get a lot of those in our profession. We get a lot of folks that come forward and their stories, and even after we do the complete investigation or we work with them, there's an indicator there that maybe something didn't happen. But the important thing is you've practiced self-compassion. You replace that person with someone you care about, and you're there to support them and listen to them. Ask yourself, what would you expect from a person if they were in your the situation you're in? So how would you expect that person to treat you? And again, it's something that I've done, and I know what I've noticed in my career is I get a lot of the calls when people get shuffled around by the government. You know, government, they call every number, and the bureaucracy sometimes you deal with, and sometimes it comes to me. And I'm thinking, well, this really isn't something that I deal with, but I still think, well, how would I want to be treated? And I still try to go that extra mile if I can to help that person. Encourage, based on your answers, consider what you would encourage that person to do and what you would do for them if you could. And then return, put yourself back in the situation, okay, and how you would deal with that. And then rebuke, you're probably hearing a bunch of, yeah, but right now, but rebuke all of that harsh head trash by thinking about what you'd say to a friend with a case of them. It'll weaken the yeah buts and power and give you some more compassion and how you're going to deal with it. And again, I'm thinking back over the last couple of weeks, I've dealt with someone that I know that 43 other task forces throughout the country have dealt with on the human trafficking side. And there are a lot of these in there, but I still treat that person with the respect they deserve and practicing that self-compassion. And then, of course, take action on things, brainstorm, and even going back, thinking back to what am I going to do next, and then encourage, based on your answers, how you're going to proceed moving forward.
So what are the benefits of self-compassion? So there's the first one, obviously, is a greater opportunity for resilience. So I think that the opportunity that you will have to bounce back by allowing yourself to feel that you can make a mistake, or you could not always do 100%, or you could not always do perfectly well, then having that opportunity is going to say, okay, I know that I've been in this place before where I haven't been able to do exactly what I wanted, or I haven't been able to do things exactly in the way that I would have liked, but I know that I can come back from this. I know that even if I made a mistake, it's going to be okay. I know that even if things aren't 100%, it's all going to work out. And if it doesn't work out the way I wanted, I'll try again, and I'll learn from this mistake and see what I can do better. So there's increased satisfaction at work, because if we're feeling like we have that space to make a mistake, if we have the ability to do things in a way that we can learn from them. So if I make a mistake, I can learn from it and become stronger and better. That's gonna be a good thing. If we have a supervisor or that allows us to be human and then be able to just do what we can in the best way we can, that's going to help us. And then it's going to help our ability to keep work at work. So if we have that level of compassion where we can say, you know what, I did the best I could. It wasn't a 100% day, but I know I've learned some things that I'm going to write down so that I can do what I need to do in order to make things better next time. Then I can leave that work at work, because I don't need to be perseverating over it when I get home. I don't need to be thinking about, oh man, I really messed up and that was really bad and I'm an awful person and maybe I should quit my job. We don't need to do that, because we already know that we can try harder next time. We can learn from our mistakes. And then there's going to be a decreased chance of burnout, because we're going to be feeling better about the work that we're doing. We're going to be feeling better about our job, and as a consequence, we're going to be feeling better about the jobs that our employees do, and they're going to get on board with us. So if they're thinking, you know what, I've got this supervisor who understands me and who can really help support me when I'm struggling, then I'm going to be I'm going to be better at my job, and my employees are going to be better at their job as well.
Okay, so resilience, do not judge me by my success, judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up. Great quote from Nelson Mandela. I can change by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. And then out of the massive suffering emerge the strongest souls, the most massive character are shared with scars. So what is the one new tool that you've learned today to increase your compassion?
So
okay,
does anybody have any, oh, go ahead.
No.
Hi, guys. Sorry. Hi, guys. So I do have some questions here. I think I just want to add that around the resiliency, when you were reading those quotes, that the resiliency piece is important, because all of this right? Like all of this self-compassion, all of the things that we're talking about during this effective leadership increase a self-awareness and a self-understanding of a leader, so that that's a resiliency skill. And so when we have it, then we're able to model it for the people that work with us. And that helps build resiliency for the team and for the other individuals in the team. So I love all that, how it's so intricate, you know, how it's all sort of connected. Some folks were asking about what does it mean to be intentional about well-being, the choices. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of intentionality around making some of these choices and doing some of these activities to build self-awareness and self-compassion?
Sure. I can start, and Anthony, feel you can jump in, or you can lead as well. So when we're talking about being intentional, it means having a purpose in doing what we're doing. So our actions are full of purpose, and they're strategic, and it's something that we take seriously. So if I'm going to be intentional about my actions, I'm going to intentionally role model that if I make a mistake, that I can show to my employees that when I make a mistake, I can learn from the mistake and move forward. It's making sure that when you're doing something with purpose, and you've thought it out thoroughly beforehand. So that's when I'm thinking about intention. And I'm sure that Anthony probably can think of some exact examples of when he's been very intentional about what he does with his staff, so that he can role model what self-compassion looks like.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up, because it's a great question. That actually happened today. I mean, it's right before we started this webinar that I talking to one of my support personnel about some of the numbers that we came up with that we're going to present statewide, and how those numbers were obtained wouldn't be the way that I would obtain those numbers initially, but understanding that she's new to the position and understanding where these numbers came from, I found it was a good time for me to actually work with her, show the compassion, and say, look, maybe we can look here, here, and here, and this is what we can add in there, and recognizing that, because I've been there before, and presenting that information. And I'd always want, as being in that type of position, being in that position, you always want a leader, someone that you can sometimes make some mistakes or ask those questions, and they're going to support you, and it'll be there, basically have your back.
Great. Yeah, the other piece about intention that I always like to add too is just the sort of brain science about intention that I think is important. It's if you choose to if you have a skill, or if you choose a direction to go in a response to something, that sets a stronger neural pathway the more you practice that. So when that intention becomes something that you go to and critically think about that, making that choice, taking that deep breath before you talk when things are amped up, it sets that neural pathway stronger. So it becomes more of that choice becomes a more powerful first choice that you go to, like it becomes the habit. So I love that piece about intention. Yeah. We also had some questions about what are some effective ways to leave work at work for folks who are leaders. That's a tough thing when you're a supervisor or a leader, to remember to give yourself space where you turn off from being the leader, where you go home and you're just the mom or dad or partner, So what are some ways to do that?
Anthony, do you want to take that, and I can fill in?
Sure. Some of the things that I've done, I always have a ritual, so which I actually had to change my ritual here at home now since I'm home at home all the time. So one of the things that I did is when I got home, my family, including the dog, knows that I have a ritual that I'd come in and I went up to our room, went in the closet, took off my gun badge, changed clothes, almost did the Mr. Roger routine, changed shoes, everything that you do, right? And then I engaged the family after that, and everything that I had to deal with at work was left in that closet. That way I didn't have to deal with it. And then I came out. And engaging the family that way really does help. Leaving work at work, or again, in my case, to be in that closet, helped quite a bit.
And there's some other things I know that I've talked with several people about, since people are working from home more frequently, and it's more difficult to leave work at work and home at home when they are the same environment. The things that I've been recommending to people is really make sure that your space where you're working, you can do something to separate that. So whether that's the chair that you're sitting in, you throw a towel over it during the day when it's your work chair, and then you take that towel off when it's your home chair. Because when your brain sees the towel over it, your brain makes a connection, that's my work chair. But then when you take that off, then your brain thinks, okay, this is my home chair. Same thing with if you're working at your dining room table, for instance. Have a tablecloth on the table that at the end of the day, you put your computer away, you put your supplies away, then you take that tablecloth off and it becomes your home table again. So it's really doing things to make your brain separate things so that your brain doesn't feel like you're always at work. It is much more difficult, honestly, when people are working from home, but I think that if you make the effort to let your brain know, I'm working now, I'm not working now, making sure that you do have a starting and stop time. So don't just think, I'm working from home, I can work 20 hours. Make sure that you actually have a stop time. Obviously, some people are going to be on call, and that's going to impact things, but try your best to do your work in one location at home, and don't spread that work throughout the whole don't spread the work throughout your whole house, because then your brain will make the connection with wherever I'm in this house, it's work.
Can I add something to that, Carol? Something I wanted to add to that, and I'm glad she said that. It's something that I noticed at the beginning of this pandemic, is that I found myself sitting in my favorite chair in my room, and we're doing a lot of this work. And I was really comfortable, and it was my favorite chair, but I wasn't as productive. But then also I noticed I wasn't separating work from my family life. So I made an effort one day to actually move all the furniture over, and we have a pretty good sized room, put a desk in the corner, made the corner of the room an actual workstation, and that's exactly what I do now. The TV, everything else is separate now. And it made a big difference, and I noticed I'm definitely a lot more productive. But when I leave work, as Carol mentioned, I mean, even closing the laptops, shutting down all your computers and walking away, because it's really easy now being home, especially we're working from home. It's easy to say, oh, I'll just do something a little bit tonight, or at 7 o'clock tonight, I'm going to jump on and get some work done. In reality, could we do that? Would we drive to the office at 7 o'clock at night to get that done? We wouldn't. So it's important we continue to separate that, and we share that with our people. And I've checked in with each one of my people, and I go, tell me about your workstation, how you got that set up. And I hear a lot of pride in that. I mean, one of my forensic examiners said, hey, we bought this house, and it has a guest house, and we've converted that into my office. And I physically have to walk across the yard and go in this house, and that's my office now. And I leave at the end of the day, and being deliberate in what you do. So that's really important, you guys, is to make sure you separate work from home. And again, with our current situation, sometimes we forget to do that, and we need to do that.
Yeah, I like those reminders. That's the first thing I thought of too, Anthony, especially when in sharing this time with you, is that because I know you build in those rituals around that transition time, and I think that's so important. And so again, to me, it draws back to this idea of being intentional. with how you schedule things and how you're going to do things for yourself, because the understanding is prioritizing that piece of wellness for yourself. It really has a ripple effect. Not only so it's good for you, but it's good for your family, it's good for your team, and then modeling that behavior is great. Someone was sharing here that they in the chat that they like to leave the end of the week with something positive that they for the whole team, and I love that idea of bookmarking, you know, like bookending that positivity at the end of a week, because then people get to go into that, they feel good about the week that they've just had, and that motivates them to want to come back and give even more, or give, you know, as quality of work as they did the previous week when they feel good about being motivated as being part of a team. So I loved that sharing. Someone brought up about vulnerability, and that's not the term they used, but it was how you facilitate leaders being introspective, and then conveying that they are trustworthy and that they have an understanding of what people are going through. And I immediately thought of the term vulnerability and the importance of that as a leader, showing that you are human too, and you do have concerns for your folks, and especially during this pandemic time, about flexibility. So if you could talk a little bit about vulnerability and how that is even shown as a way that you have built a strong team, Anthony. If you could talk a little bit about vulnerability.
Well, I think my team is, I mean, I share a lot of my team. We know each other really well. I know their personal lives. I know a lot about, how their family structure is. They know about us, and we have a service dog. We just got another one too, which is, I'm surprised you haven't heard her bark so much. But the vulnerability. My folks know that I do have that. They know that I've shown some of that vulnerability. That they've seen me where things they've affected me and how it bothers me, and even within a responding to a call or something. We've talked about that. For example, we did operations the last couple of weeks, and my folks knew how those operations and some of the things that were done by these individuals, what they did to me, and we talked about that, and they see that, so they feel comfortable enough to talk more about what's affecting them and how they're dealing with that on a daily basis. And I think that's important as a leader. And I know most of you are probably law enforcement on this, but law enforcement, again, being here 32 years, we've always had to have this hard shell that we can't, we've always had to wear this armor, and sometimes it's okay to loosen the armor, and it's okay to be soft at the right time, and it's with your people. They need to see that you are human, and that you are compassionate, and that things do bother you, and then how you deal with that, because they learn from that. And I don't think we see that enough. And, it does concern me, because I see a lot of the news bulletin or the police bulletins that come across about suicide rates being up and things like that. And I ask, well, where's the leadership there? How are they supporting their people? Are they looking for those people that are vulnerable, and then how are they dealing with that, and how supportive are they being? And it's important we do that as a leader, that we look for that, and we watch out for our people and get to know them and be there for them. I mean, things have changed. I mean, I've seen law enforcement change over the number of years. It is a professional career, but being part of that being a professional career, we still have to take care of each other.
Yeah, that idea of smashing the stigma around showing vulnerability and showing and really connecting with other people, and the importance of that. I, too, have seen that change quite a bit. And this idea of self-judgment and perfectionism, sometimes, that perfectionism and that that extreme independence and not needing people, that can also be a trauma response, right? So if we are aware of that, and notice that, see that where that comes up for ourselves and see where that may come up for our people, that to me is also being trauma informed around what our responses can be to the things that we see on a daily basis. So we have just a short period of time left here. So if we have any more questions that people might have, if you want to leave them here, we can respond to you, or you can email us. These are our email addresses. And I really want to thank you all for being here today, for attending this session, and encourage you to come to the other sessions of this series. So thank you so much. Thank you to Carol and Anthony, and thank you to William and everybody at NTTAC for allowing us to present the material.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Beth. I appreciate that. And thank you very much to Carol and to Anthony, and of course to Beth yourself for a wonderful presentation for our presenters and for our audience today. Before we adjourn today, audience, I just have a few last-minute items that I'd like to bring up and talk with you all about in regards to some follow-up items from today's webinar. Please note that you can reach out to OJJDP's NTTAC through the information that's on this slide. Please be sure to text NTTAC at 22828 in order to sign up for our listserv. You can also find us on Facebook at OJJDP TTA. Also note that if you'd like to receive information about OJJDP's getting in contact with OJJDP's help desk or the Juve Just, or even the any upcoming events, you may do so by reaching out to the OJJDP TTA help desk at the number on this slide and also at the email address on this slide. These links are live as well, where you can click on them if you'd like to go to the OJJDP website or even sign up for the OJJDP Juve Just listserv. Also be sure to click the link below there to see about upcoming web events that are live that you can register for. Do you have a training or technical assistance need? Well, if so, please note that you can reach out and request assistance via the OJJDP TTA 360 platform. You can access that platform on the link here. Remember, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our NTTAC YouTube channel. If you'd like to receive any supporting materials for any of the webinars, you may reach out to the OJJDP TTA help desk to receive information for each of those webinars. Please be sure to join us for these upcoming webinars that we have, including one with our colleagues with the Western Regional Children's Advocacy Center coming up next week. And then we have part 3 of our effective leadership series with our friends here at the Innocent Justice Foundation and with Shift. Please be sure to register for those events. You can simply click on the Register Now button, and it will indeed allow for you to register for each of those events. Same with these upcoming events that we have, one on the 3rd with our colleagues with Zero Abuse Project. Please note that this webinar on the 3rd is only for individuals who are law enforcement and MDT members. And then we have part 4 of our effective leadership webinar coming up on November 4th. Be sure to click the Register Now to register for that specific webinar, and click the Learn More in order to learn more about each of these web events. And finally, just to wrap us up for today, we have one final poll question that we'd like folks to take a minute to, oops, sorry, my apologies, let me edit this poll a little bit because it is multiple choice or multiple select. So let us know, how do you plan to apply the information from this webinar in your work. You can select on multiple items here, so feel free to click away and let us know how do you plan to apply the information from this webinar to your work. I'm going to leave this poll question up for our audience as you all trickle out of the virtual room, and please feel free to fill it out. Again, thank you to our presenters, to our moderator, and to our audience for joining us today. Everyone take care and have a great afternoon. Thank you.